So it's going to go live. So they're going to hear everything. But as soon as it pulls it up, I'll let you know. We're probably live now. Hopefully you can still see me. Welcome to the TED Show. Live on YouTube.
Woo!
Live everywhere else soon. Certainly recorded. Oh, you got a pup in the background.
I got a dog. I'm going to have to take care of that.
They're going to hear everything. There we go. All right, so there we are. Meeting's now streaming live on YouTube. We're good. Hey, guys, welcome back. I am so honored and privileged to have my friend, my pastor, certainly a guy I look up to very much on the show today, David Swanson from First Presbyterian downtown. He's amazing. He's got a great energy and a great disposition. He's friendly. He's accessible. He's been on the show several times. And I thought, you know what? Let's do a cool show while everything's going on. Talk about what's going on in the world as far as faith, hope, and love go. And certainly what's going on, the challenges of the church. So welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, Ted. It's great to be with you again. It's been a while. And I think it was way back last spring, maybe, we were doing kind of a regular deal, talking about kind of faith and life. And so this is a great time to talk about it. I think a lot of people are having some fears and anxious thoughts. And so I'm pleased to have the opportunity to visit with you.
I'm excited. All right. So let's dive in if we can.
Yeah.
I believe, like you said, there's a lot of people who aren't really sure what to do. There's a lot of fear. A lot of uncertainty brings fear and just adds to it. You've got anxiety involved. You've got sadness and depression because people are losing jobs or their weddings are postponed, things that certainly make an impact on their lives. And so people really are feeling all of this negative emotion and aren't sure what to do with it. And if you add money to the mix and people struggling with that, struggling to keep their businesses afloat, pay their payroll, there's a lot of people who are down right now. We talk a lot about on the show positivity, and I thought let's bring that in from my faith perspective. So can you tell us what's going on with you? What do you see?
Well, I think you've summarized it pretty well. I think people are doing a lot of what I call awfulizing, where you look at a situation and in your mind you make it as awful as it can possibly be, and you let yourself kind of go down a path towards despair and hopelessness. And I was on a call. In fact, my first call this morning was with a group of mental health professionals on the impact of this on our coming mental health. And we're already seeing increases in depression, anxiety, calls to the suicide hotline, things like that. And I think, that will grow, but I don't think you have to go there. And you can probably now hear my yard man. So whacking.
I can hear it. It's fine. It's fine.
So I apologize. But I think you can do some things that will help your own self-care. And I think one of those is stop tuning in to all of the news and information and the scroll at the bottom of your TV screen. I think we need to be informed, but then I think we need to let that go, and we don't need to read every story and awfulize it because, now the president says we're going to be no groups larger than 10 until April 30th. And we're like, what? It's not even April 1st yet. And so we go down that road. And my recommendation is you only live one day at a time. And that's so cliche and I hate it, but it's really true. Just every day, get up and do today and try to get some exercise. If your thing, in my faith, I think what this is all pushing us towards and forcing us to really look at is what is actually the foundation of my life? What do I actually believe is happening in the world? Is this all there is? Is there something after this? And so there are lots of those big existential questions that people are wrestling with. So sometimes I think just slowing all that down, meditating, or what I would call praying, seeking the presence of God. And if your book is scripture, your book is something else, find those passages about peace and the presence of the Lord and the love that he has for you, and let yourself rest in those things. And I think that just helps with your mental framework. Instead of taking in all the bad news, we need to take in some good news.
So how is it? I totally agree. I feel like we talk about it every day. There has to be some sort of positivity that you are focusing on
Mm-hmm.
when you get up, whether you pray, meditate, whatever it is that you do. And then staying positive. I'm not saying it's not a challenge, people, when I say that. I'm saying that you're really making these choices, whether to stay positive or go down the rabbit hole of the
Mm-hmm.
negativity. And like you said, David, it's so easy. If you turn on the news or social media, I mean, it would get any human being down
Yeah.
if you listen to all of that. And plus, the rhetoric itself is so different. Everybody's got a different. When are we shutting down? When are we opening up? It's super serious, or it's just like the flu. And
Mm-hmm.
people don't understand how to maneuver through. So people have to begin to realize on themselves, figure out where they're at. I'm a faith guy, so mine's on faith. But I feel like people need to figure that out and not listen to all of these outside forces and
Mm-hmm.
really kind of deep dive, like you said. I think it's
I
just
agree,
super.
and I think you've said it, and I'll certainly say it. It's not like I'm living anxiety free, or by any means. I mean, there are things that we're all naturally going to worry about. I have a daughter who's a nurse at Vanderbilt Hospital in Nashville, so I worry about her every day. But I do believe, in my faith tells me that there's a God who is in control of all this, that the world is not spinning sort of helplessly out of control, but there's something larger than just my life that is at work here. And so trying to look at the positive side of this, I am emboldened by the thought that this is not the first time that the world has gone through something like this. There have been major worldwide catastrophic events since the dawn of human history. And so this is our season. This is our generation's time. And we have the opportunity in this to demonstrate and model for our children and perhaps for our grandchildren. You know what? When the chips are down, this is how you handle it. In the midst of the chaos, there actually is order, and I'm going to take care of other people, and I'm going to have integrity in what I do, and I'm going to believe that there's something bigger that's going on here. And I feel like that this is a privilege that we've been given to lead well in a season like this and go, okay, what can I do? And in terms of how we manage the stress, one of the things I'm thinking of every day is what can I do for somebody else? And I know it's hard because you can't get near anybody else except your family or your immediate family. But what I found is, people making cards and leaving them on somebody's porch. I drove by a neighborhood yesterday and some people had put up a big sign at the entrance to this neighborhood that said, "Thank you, nurses, doctors, and all healthcare professionals. We love you." And there were hearts all over it. And so I'm like, all right, somebody spent, I bet it was a bunch of kids, and they spent a bunch of time yesterday making a big sign. And I thought, what a great positive way to spend time together. The other thing I do, shameless self-promotion, every morning at 9 o'clock in the morning on Facebook Live, on my Facebook page and on the church's Facebook page, I'm doing kind of a devotional time for about 15 or 20 minutes. And I can't tell you, some days I get out of bed and I'm going, gosh, here we are again. Yeah. And I get on that call and I see all the names, and you know how this feels. All the names pop up on the right side of your screen, and it's like a family reunion. Yep. I'm like, hey, Barbara, hey, Joe, how you doing? And you're getting people together. So I love that part. And we can be intentional about setting up calls with our friends. And maybe a Zoom call, or, you've probably seen this too, neighborhood, evening gatherings at sunset. Everybody goes to the end of their driveway and you got to talk a little louder, but everybody has a beverage of their choice and they unwind at the end of the day. I think those are some positive things where we're getting to know our neighbors. I mean, when I go take a walk, before this, if I'm taking a walk, nobody talks to me.
Right.
They walk past me and they don't want to stop and visit. Now everyone's waving. How you doing? We're talking. We're meeting each other. Where do you live? How's this going for you? The relational dynamics are fantastic. And so let's not look at all the negative things. There are plenty of those, and we need to understand what the information is. But I think there are plenty of ways that we can be positive too. And I think that begins with just being intentional about how we're going to spend our time.
I agree. I love it. I think you're right. I think we have to figure out what that looks like, and we have to think outside of whatever box we've set up. And I was one of those people, and I've said it on just about every show since I've been doing Zoom, that I thought, oh my God, I'm a touchy-feely person, a huggy person. This is going to be sterile and boring and horrible, and I'm not going to be able to really read the person. And that is so the opposite of it. So even if Zoom isn't your thing, Facebook Live, it doesn't matter what it is. Just that engagement is so powerful and positive, and I think it helps lift people up. One of the reasons we're doing these shows, hopefully back on Facebook Live again soon, is because people are hungry and thirsty for that connection that they didn't realize how important it was for some of them, and they're struggling with it. And so here's a tool, believe it or not, a technology that we can utilize to get as close to that as we possibly can. I think it's much better than a phone call, even though a phone call is great. But seeing somebody face to face and be able to see their expressions and hear their voice while they're speaking, it just does a wonder for your whole soul. And I want to ask you about that because you obviously have we have a big congregation, and so how I saw an article that was done on you. Explain how you're handling that since people can't come to our church physically. I know you've had the live streaming for a long time, but you still had an audience in front of you. Now you don't have an audience. So talk about that adjustment that you had to make.
Well, it's been very hard, and you took the words right out of my mouth. I didn't realize what a touchy-feely, huggy person I am. I whenever I see anybody, I'm hugging or shaking hands or whatever. And the article that was in the paper last week was about a funeral, a graveside service that I did, where everyone gets out of the car, and especially at a funeral, your first instinct is to go hug the spouse of the deceased, and it's like here we all were going and you couldn't reach the other person, and it just is so it's so difficult. And I think what it speaks to, though, and I love this part of what we're all learning about ourselves, is we're hardwired to be in relationships with each other. That's why this is so hard. And our culture had become so individually driven, and we were easing into a technology life that was separating us. And we were okay with doing online meetings and video conferencing. And in my church, there were a nice little regular increase of people worshiping online when we were still meeting together.
Right.
That number was going up because, it's just easier. It's more convenient. We were gradually separating ourselves, and all of a sudden, personal relationships got taken away from us. And now we're so hungry for it. And it just speaks to us of what the human heart longs for and yearns for, is that relational connection with other people. And so that's why this is so hard. That's why we are impatient for these things to be lifted. And so if you're me and you're a preacher and you're used to stepping out in front of, a few hundred people at least every morning, and when I'm talking, I never realized how much feedback I get from all the people sitting there. And I'm Presbyterian, and as are you. And so when I'm preaching, people aren't talking back to me, like in some churches. And so I don't get that, but they are. I am getting body language. I'm getting facial expressions and laughter. And you know me, I like to have a little levity every once in a while, and talk about a confidence sucking moment when you're in an empty room and you crack a joke and there's no laughter. And all of a sudden you go, oh, was that bad? And your confidence just like leaves the room. And
right.
So it's just, you have to really, and what I've learned to do is you have to look at the camera and you have to imagine the people behind it.
Correct.
And that's how I've been able to and I think I've gotten a little better at it as the weeks have ticked by. And so imagining those people, and then what they've done a good job of is interacting with me, and they'll comment. And when I get finished, I go back later and answer their comments, and we can interact that way. But it's been a big adjustment to just step out in front of an empty room and manufacture your own energy. And so it's a new day. And I'm rambling on here, but it's also hard because people are in the hospitals, and I can't get to them. They're ill, and they're also alone, and that's a whole new ball game as well.
I think people, when this all started, people didn't realize the little but incredibly important things that it was going to impact in our world, such as a hospital visit or a visit to your parents or grandparents in an assisted living. Or I mean, I'm very thankful that my grandson was born a whole month early, or we wouldn't have been able to go out and see him. I mean, there are just things that we just didn't realize was going to impact us in the ways. And so I don't think people were prepared. So every day it's some new sort of challenge. And as our leaders, political leaders make decisions, we have to figure out, all right, so what does this mean specifically in this scenario? And so it's hard, but I wanted people to hear that you are the consummate pro at speaking in front of people. And yet there's still a challenge when we have to shift to a different platform. What I like to think of is that it's a positive overall. I'm gaining a new gift, a new talent, a new skill, and I'm learning how to communicate with people across the board rather than just in the way, sit next to me, sit across from me at my table at Citrus Club, let's have a good time, hug at the end, hug at the beginning, and then be on your way. This is forcing me to bring out some gifts and talents that I didn't realize that I had. So I feel very positive. I want to end, if you don't mind, talking about the actual scripture, faith, hope, and love. And you can give us, if you can, the whole scripture. But I want to talk about a little bit of the meaning of that and how you think that sort of applies to today.
Yes, so that's at the very end of a very important text in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 1 to 8. So the verse 8 is, and now there abides these three, faith, hope, and love, and the greatest of these is love. So Paul has just given a personification of what love is. Love is patient, love is kind, it is not boastful, it is not rude, it is not proud. And so as he goes through that, he's kind of describing, in essence, the way that we have been loved by God in Christ. For those of you who are of Christian faith, he's personifying the work of Christ. But when he gets to the end of it, he says, but the most important three dynamics here are faith, that you have some confidence in something larger than yourself. And so you go to Hebrews chapter 11. And faith is the evidence of what we believe, and our trust in things that we can't even see. And so we think about, there's got to be something more than just my life that I believe to be true about the world. So what do I really believe in? Hope is that thing that there is a positive thing that's going to happen in the future. I have to believe that it's not always going to be this way. And I remember, hope is like a big glass of water to a thirsty person. And I remember when I was in my mid-20s, and I used to have terrible, debilitating panic attacks, and almost agoraphobic, where I couldn't even leave my parents' living room. And I'd gone to see a counselor, and I went in the first session, and she looked at me and she goes, David, I treat bank presidents, I treat doctors, I treat pastors. They all experience what you are. You're going to be fine. It's going to be okay. And it was like somebody gave me a big glass of water, and I had hope. I was like, oh my gosh, there are going to be the things I thought I was going to do in my life, I'm going to be able to do. And she was right. And so we need to have hope in something. And then the last one is love. And not only is that, how am I being loved? Am I someone who is beloved to others? Does God love me? Does my spouse love me? Do my friends love me? Do I feel the affirmation of others? And then how am I doing at loving? And that's what's a little more challenging for us, I think. But I think it was, I don't know who said it first. It might have been Hillary Clinton said, never waste a good crisis, right? So as you just said, we have an opportunity to learn new things, and we've got a whole lot more family togetherness than we used to have. And so I think this is a great time for us to build better dynamics in our married life, better dynamics with our children, better dynamics with our aging parents. These are all we have because we have more time. And so how are we going to intentionally improve those and learn to express, you know what, I have faith that I'm going to be okay and that I'm going to get through this. And I hope in my future because of these things that I believe, and I'm going to depend on and I'm going to love others well as we seek to get through it. So I think those are three very important dynamics that we can all lean into at various levels.
As always, you're amazing. I feel my spirit lighten up when you're in the room, whether it's real or across technology. And I appreciate that positivity. And I think that our faith leaders also have an amazing opportunity, which you are taking. And I appreciate that so much. It's people are struggling, and it's so nice to have somebody at the top who is sharing and learning along with the rest of us, but maintaining that faith that we all strive to continue to have in our daily lives. So thank you, my friend, so much for being on the show with me. You're always a joy. I love and appreciate you. And you guys who are watching YouTube, I can't see the comments, but I promise I'll go back and look. And then we will post this show, obviously, later on. Thank you so much, David Swanson, for being on.
Thanks, Ted. Great being with you. I'd hug you if I was there.
Big hugs to you, my friend.
Okay. God bless.
Thank you.